Hey, what's up everyone? Jonathan Allen here at Floodwater Studios. Today we're going over part 2 of our virtual instruments rundown through Studio One. Last week we touched on virtual drums, using an electronic drum kit to trigger the virtual sounds inside the software here. And today we're going to take a look at more keyboard stuff. Now, if you don't remember the song that we have started on, let's give a quick listen to that here so we can hear what we're working with.
No control, broken free, my heart will fly to its dreams. So hold my hand, I'll take you to the place where we were meant.
So that's what we have so far right now. And we can see in the track listing here, we have our kick drum, we have a snare, which I forgot. Let's go over here and we're going to name this kick so we remember. And we like to color things, so we're going to shift and click to highlight both of these tracks over here on the left. Click in the color section, and these are going to be red, so we remember that those are drums. These are the only two drum tracks we're going to have for the song, so it's not a huge necessity, but it keeps you in that habit of naming and coloring tracks like we talked about in the very first episode, which I'll put a link up to that here in the corner as well if you want to go back, if this is your first time joining in. So last week, like I said, we worked with these drums, we set everything up, we looked at some quantizing just a little bit. Again, this is a basic series, so we're not going to go too far depth into things, just really getting what we need to do to start out and really just kind of start putting some music down into our DAW. And today we also wanted to look at these Ebow tracks. So Eli had recorded these Ebow tracks here. If you haven't really heard them in the song, because they're kind of mixed in a little bit sitting back, let's go back and we'll listen to a little bit of just those soloed so you hear what they sound like. And then I'll throw in the acoustic so you can kind of hear everything together. So as you can tell, they're just kind of sitting in the background, just a little bit extra something there to kind of fill out some space, a little bit of harmony with the two guitar parts coming through the Ebow there. But he had an idea, possibly we might want to switch out what was recorded with the Ebow and move it to a strings sound using some virtual instruments. Now, I did not write this song. I am not as connected to this song as Eli, so we are going to wait to actually record all of those parts until he can get back into the studio here with me. But we are going to jump into some software instruments that we will have an option to choose when we do the recording, and we'll go through some different sounds and different settings and see if there's something that we can take to Eli that he may like and may want to use. So let's start. We're going to go ahead and take these out of solo, and we're going to come down here to our browse option in the bottom right. That's going to bring up our menu over here, and make sure again we're clicked on instruments. And then what we're going to do, tune track was open because of the drums. We're going to close that so it's not in our way. And we're just going to look at some built-in software instruments from PRESONUS themselves. So we'll open up PRESONUS, one of the bigger packs if you're looking for different pianos or synths, choirs, different orchestral instruments. You're going to want to look at Presence. So with Presence, we can click it, and we're just going to drag it over to an empty space here. So once we drag that over, it will automatically load the instrument with its own channel here. And then this is what the virtual instrument looks like inside the software. Now there's tons of options here. You have your LFOs, you have your different filters, your envelopes, your global volume, your velocities. We're not going to get into everything here because, like I said, this is a basic series. We want to keep everything just kind of plug and play, get you started, then start experimenting with things. So what we're going to want to do is where it says default here, we are going to click that, and we have some templates that come in Side Studio One. Now, Deep Flight 1, this gives you tons of options at a little more um, different types of sounds, quality of sounds as well. Deep Flight 1 does come with the PRESONUS Sphere package that they offer on a monthly subscription. That's completely up to you if you'd like to go that route or not. But even just the pianos that come in here, so the Studio One Grand, we have some classic orchestral things where we're getting into brass, choir, percussion, strings, woodwind, different articulations for those as well. Your contemporary strings, where you have your bass section, big string section, cello section, violin, and viola. A little different variations on those as well as there, and then just a basic strings section where you have your contrabass, violas, and violins. There's tons of options, but we're going to click into the classic orchestra here, and we're just going to open up the strings setting. Now, in here, we're going to take a look at the kind of sound that we're looking for potentially. It may be a violin section. So we're going to have some multiple sounds that are happening, more than one instrument seemingly playing at the same time together. So when you click on your preset, it's going to load everything, and that could take just a second to go. So now that everything's loaded in this window right here, it tells you different ways you can manipulate the sound while you're playing, using key switches to change articulations, using mod wheel or expression to control dynamics, playback, automate cutoff filter to gain access for more muted sounds. So you can mess with the envelope, you can mess with your LFOs, you can mess with your filters, you can mess with different things on the keyboard as well. Again, we're just going to hop over to the keyboard real quick, and we're just going to play some stuff and see what it sounds like. Alright, so as you can tell, it's just a basic violin section sound. Now, we can, just like the drums, we can get in here. We're going to close this out for a second, and we're going to double click on what we just recorded. So when we double click, we get our MIDI notes, just like we had before for the drums. Now, for those MIDI notes, it does tell you what note you're playing for things, and we can look in and we can quantize that if we'd like. We can actually take everything. So we can click in here, and then we're going to do the select all there, and we can take that now. And we know that the first note, if you hover over it, it's an E3, but it's violins, so they can get pretty up in the register. So we can take this and just slide it up. So now we're up to an E4. So let's hear what that little run sounds like now. Now, one thing I like to do with virtual instruments as well, especially with violins, if we come down here, we're going to close the edit window and we're going to pull up our mix window. Now, we do have some effects sends that are over here to the right-hand side. We have a room reverb, a plate reverb, a spring reverb, a slap back delay, a quarter note delay, and a half note delay as well. So I like to add some effects onto things. Now, one thing that I will show effects wise is we've already gone through the harmony. There is a little bit of reverb on the harmony. I do like to add reverb to the vocals, just so they kind of sit better in the mix. They don't sound so dry, but they're just kind of part of the room. For that, I use the room verb. Now for the violins, which here, I will name that violin, so we know what instrument this is if we start to stack more on top of them and start building out something very fantastic. Now here, we want to go to where it says sends, and we're going to click the plus sign, which is going to add a send. Now here, there's a bunch of different options. I have our different ear mixes for our monitors, but we want to focus on the actual reverbs. So I want to choose a plate reverb for this. It can get very dramatic, but if you just kind of pop it down a little bit, you click your bar here, and you can choose what level you're sending this signal to for the effects send. We can blend that in together. One thing I also like to do is put just a little bit of slapback delay on there. So this, and again, just a little bit. So that way it kind of gives a little more fullness to things and makes it not seem like such a virtual instrument. We don't want something to sound stale. We want it to have life and be enjoyable to listen to. So let's hear what that sounds like. So it just adds a little bit to it. So I'm actually going to put a little more reverb on there. And then we're going to pull up the slapback just slightly as well. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Is it something that we can build off of and just get an idea down? Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do that. One thing that you can also do is add your plugins here. You can add EQ, you can add compression, you can really work on these sounds to make them better. Now, if you wanted to bring up your virtual instrument again here, if you just click the keyboard icon. Now, what if we didn't want a violin section? What if we wanted a cello? So we could switch over to a cello, allow this to load real quick. Now the cello's loaded. Let's close this out. And we can listen to maybe what this part sounds like as a cello. Now, we did octave this up, so it may be a little high for what a cello actually plays. In fact, a lot of the virtual instruments will cap how high in the register something will play, because in reality, that instrument will not go that high up in the scale. So it may cut something out, but let's listen and see what it does. There you go. The cello cannot go that high up in the scale, so it cuts out that sound. It will not produce anything. So what we can do is we can go to the edit window or double click here. It will open everything. Let's click in here again. Option A, select everything, and then we're going to bring this down in the scale. Now we know the first note is an E, so let's go all the way down to where a cello may sit more comfortably. That sounds a lot more comfortable for a cello. Now, quite honestly, we could probably even go down another octave here if we drop it down here to our E1. Again, you can really play with these and put them where you want. Now, if you're going to go that low, you might even look into a contrabass where you could go a little bit lower as well. But I think that sits well for a cello, even where we were. If we just do an option Z to fix what we just did, it will take us back to the register that we were in, which was in that E2, and it sounds really great here, I think. And virtual instruments have come a long way in today's world with the realism that they sound like. You can even hear that slight distortion of the bow against the strings. It's really great. So, like I said, just something simple. We wanted to present just kind of, we're not getting into the weeds with things. We just want to show you what you can do to get started. Just hit record. Grab yourself a little keyboard, a MIDI controller, something you can plug in USB to your interface or to your. Grab yourself a controller or a keyboard that you can plug into your computer USB and just hit record. Start playing around. The goal with making music is to just express yourself, to be creative, and enjoy what you're doing. So we are going to take some of these ideas and sounds and present them to Eli to see what he's looking for. In fact, let's try one more. Let's take a look down here, and let's click into our keyboard again to pull up our instrument. Now let's go a little crazy. Let's get away from the orchestral sounds, and let's take a look at Deep Flight 1. Now, again, this isn't going to come standard with Studio One. It is an option for a monthly fee. It includes a ton of stuff that they have, but I think it's very well worth it. And they are not sponsoring this video at all. But let's take a look at a choir just to see what that sounds like. So we'll take a choir and then possibly let's just do a digital choir. Why not? And let's see what Projector 1968 sounds like. And this is the first time I'm listening to this specific choir as well, right along with you. So we'll see how this goes. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. Okay, that's a bit more eerie than I thought it would sound. But let's actually octave this up a little bit so we get it up in the register here. So let's go up to an E1. Or an E3, sorry. My apologies, E3. And let's put it with everything real quick and see how it sounds. Well, I'm right there with you. I don't like it either. So let's try a different choir real quick, just for fun. So let's get away from the digital choirs because obviously they're not working for us. But let's go down to maybe a gated choir. Nope, I don't like those either. So let's get away from the Deep Flight 1 choirs, which Deep Flight 1, it's great. It has its purpose. I've used it on many things as well. But let's go back to the orchestral and let's go to a more natural sounding choir. So let's go to, everyone does oohs and ahs. So let's do maybe an eh. We'll see how that sounds. Now, off the bat, it doesn't sound great. Could you make something like this work? Absolutely. That's the joy of messing around with things and seeing how to make it work, if that's the sound you're going for. Throwing in multiple layers, different octaves, different harmonies, you could really make a choir pop on that. But like I said, probably not what we're looking for here, but I'll throw it to Eli and see what he's thinking. Well, guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out. I know these videos are a little bit on the longer side, so we appreciate you hanging in there with us and really just, going through the settings here for the different things that we're working with, looking at the different virtual instruments we've done, the whole process so far for this song. Which, again, we are going to release as a single, or should I say Eli's going to release as a single at the end of this, because this is off of his solo album that's coming out in April. So keep an ear out for that. We're going to do definitely More talking about that in the future. Well, guys, thanks again so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, throw them down there in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And we hope you have a great day. Bye.